Dear friends, welcome to the shadowed elegance of Queen Victoria's world, where empire shimmered under gaslight, yet hid a less regal truth. From 1837 to 1901, Victoria ruled as Britain's iron-willed monarch, her image draped in mourning black, a symbol of duty and grace. But beneath the silk and lace, her daily life carried a whiff of the unsavory habits that would make us wince today. Imagine the heavy scent of coal smoke curling through Buckingham Palace, mingling with unwashed linen and the faint tank of reused cloths. Her sponge baths were rare, her hair greasy under jeweled pins, her teeth crumbling from sugar's sweet betrayal. Tonight, we'll peel back the velvet curtain to reveal the grime of royal life, a slow journey through the dirt no one dared mention. So, settle into your softest blanket, dim the lights, perhaps turn on a fan for its gentle hum. Take a moment to like this video and subscribe if you find comfort in these quiet tales. Picture a palace glowing with candlelight, its air thick, with the musk of unwashed gowns, the sharp bite of vinegar-soaked rags, and the distant reek of overflowing cesspits. Victoria, adorned in heavy skirts, fought to maintain her mythic aura, her maids dabbing rosewater to mask the sweat of a queen who rarely bathed. This wasn't neglected, was the Victorian way, where cleanliness bowed to appearances and fragrance was power. As we drift through her world, let the clatter of carriage wheels and the rustle of silk lull you towards sleep, uncovering the filthy secrets of a monarch whose crown sat atop a very human, very unwashed reality. Dear friends, settle into the soft hum of this moment, let your eyelids grow heavy, and allow your mind to wander back to a time when gaslights flickered against the London fog, casting long shadows over a world both grand and grimy. It's 1837, and a young Queen Victoria, barely 18, steps onto the throne of an empire stretching across oceans. Her reign, spanning over 6 decades, will come to define an era Victorian England, a time of progress, industry, and elegance, but also of secrets tucked beneath starched collars and heavy silk skirts. Tonight, we begin our gentle journey not with the pomp of coronations or the clatter of steam engines, but with something far more ordinary, yet far less spoken of: the dirt, the smells, the hidden habits that clung to the Queen and her court like damp wool on a winter's day. Picture the air, thick with coal smoke, the faint sourness of unwashed bodies, and the cloying sweetness of rosewater trying, but never quite succeeding, to mask it all. This is the world we'll drift through, a world where cleanliness was less about soap and more about illusion, where even a queen could not escape the grime of her time. So, breathe deeply, let the soft rhythm of these words carry you, and imagine stepping into Buckingham Palace, where the truth lingers in every unwashed corner. Close your eyes, dear listener, and let the scene unfold. You're standing at the gates of Buckingham Palace, its pale stone facade glowing under a weak sun, the air sharp with the tang of horse manure from the nearby mews. Carriages rattle past, their wheels grinding against cobblestones, slick with mud and worse. Inside, the palace hums with life servants scurrying, ladies in crinolines gliding through marble halls, and the Queen herself, a small figure swathed in layers of black silk after the loss of her beloved Albert. But take a breath, and you'll notice something else. The air isn't crisp or clean. It's heavy, warm, almost sticky, carrying the faint musk of bodies pressed too close, of wool gowns worn day after day, of chamber pots tucked discreetly behind velvet curtains. This is no modern palace with flushing pipes or tiled bathrooms. This is a place where the scent of lavender battles the stench of sewage, where grandeur and grime coexist in uneasy harmony. Victoria's world was one of contradictions, an empire of iron and steam, yet a court where water was distrusted, where soap was a luxury, and where the queen herself might go weeks without a proper bath. Let's linger here, in this moment, and let the sounds of the palace, the rustle of skirts, the clink of silver teapots, the distant cough of a coal fire lull you into the past. Imagine walking through the grand entrance, your footsteps echoing. On polished floors, the chandeliers above glinting like stars caught in crystal. But as you move deeper, the air shifts. It grows denser, carrying the faint whiff of damp stone, of tallow candles burning low, their greasy smoke curling into tapestries that haven't been cleaned in years. The palace is a maze of corridors, each one a little warmer, a little closer. Then the last. Servants dart past, their aprons stained from kitchen work, their hands red from scrubbing pots with ash and lye, not soap. The nobles, in their fine silks, carry pomander's small orbs of perforated silver filled with dried herbs, swinging gently from their waists, a feeble defense against the odors that seep from every corner. You pause by a window, hoping for a breeze, but the glass is sealed tight, the air outside no cleaner than within. London's rivers, the Thames chief among them, are little more than open sewers, their stench drifting up to mingle with the palace's own. This is the world Victoria inherited, a world where cleanliness was a performance, not a practice, where the queen's dignity depended on masking the truth of her body, her court, her home. Now, picture Victoria herself, a young queen in her early years, her cheeks still flushed with youth, her dark hair pinned tightly beneath a lace cap. She's seated in her private apartments, a tray of tea and sugared biscuits before her, the faint clink of porcelain breaking the silence. Her gown, a cascade of silk and embroidery, rustles as she shifts, but it's not fresh from the laundry. As we know it, barely exists. Her undergarments, linen shifts touching her skin, might be changed every few days, but the outer layers, heavy with beadwork and status, are brushed and aired, not washed. Smell the faint sweetness of lavender sachets sewn into her sleeves, battling the musk of sweat that clings to the fabric after a long day of audiences and dinners. Her maids, silent and practiced, move around her, dabbing rosewater on her wrists, smoothing her hair with pomade that smells of cloves and grease. This is her morning ritual, not a cleansing but a layering, a careful construction of the royal image. The water in the basin beside her is tepid, scented with herbs, used not to scrub but to pat gently at her face and hands. Bathing, as we understand. It is a rarity, perhaps once a week, if that, and even then, it's a sponge bath. A quick pass of a damp cloth over skin that hasn't seen soap in days. Let's pause here, dear listener, and breathe in the scene. The room is warm, the air thick with the scent of wax and coal, the faint metallic temps of ink from the letters on Victoria's desk. Her hands, gloved in soft kid leather, carry the faint perfume of violets, a scent chosen to mask the reality of a body that, like all bodies, sweats and tires. The gloves are a barrier, not just between her and the world, but between the queen and the truth of her own humanity. In this era, water is a risk, believed to open the pores to disease, to invite chills or worse. Doctors warn against it, their voices low and serious, their remedies rooted in herbs and superstition rather than science. So Victoria, like her subjects, relies on fragrance rose water, lavender, thyme to create the illusion of cleanliness. The palace itself follows suit, with bowls of dried flowers on every table. sprigs of rosemary scattered on the floors, their sharp scent released underfoot. But these are fleeting defenses against a deeper truth. The palace stinks, not of decay but of life, of bodies pressed together, of fabrics worn too long, of waste hidden just out of sight. Step closer to the Queen's apartments, and the air grows heavier still. The windows, draped in velvet, let in little light, trapping the warmth and the smells within. A chamber pot, discreetly tucked beneath a cushioned stool, waits for a servant's quiet hands to empty it into a pit outside, where it joins the waste of the entire court. Smell the faint sourness, the vinegar used to clean the pot, the herbs, sprinkled to dull the odor. This is no modern bathroom with gleaming tiles and running water. This is a world where waste lingers, where servants carry buckets through back corridors, their steps careful to avoid drawing attention. The Queen, of course, never speaks of this. No one does. It's a silent pact, a shared pretense that the palace is as pristine as its portraits, that the Queen's body is as pure as her crown. But the truth is in the air, in the dampness of the walls, in the faint creak of floorboards over cesspits that never quite empty now. Imagine the court assembling for a banquet, the long tables draped in damask, silver gleaming under candlelight. Victoria sits at the head, her small frame dwarfed by her gown's wide skirts, her face pale with powder, her lips touched with carmine dye. The air is alive with chatter, the clink of glasses, the rustle of fabric as lords and ladies shift in their seats. But beneath the elegance, there's something else, a faint whiff of unwashed skin, of wool soaked in yesterday's sweat, of breath sharpened by wine and decay. The Queen's smile is practiced, her teeth hidden, for even in her youth, her love for sweet scandied fruits, marzipan, sugared almonds, has begun to darken them. She sips her tea, the steam carrying a hint of bergamot, and gestures with a gloved hand, the scent of violets trailing her movement. Her courtiers mimic her, their own gloves perfumed, their faces dusted with powder, their bodies layered in fabrics that haven't seen water in weeks. This is the dance of the Victorian court, a performance of refinement where cleanliness is an illusion, where the scent of wealth spices, flowers, imported oils stands in for soap. Let's linger on the streets outside, for the palace does not exist in isolation. Picture London, a city of progress and filth, its air choked with soot from factories, its rivers sluggish with sewage. The Thames, once a silver ribbon, is now a brown mire, its stench wafting into the palace windows on warm days. The poor huddle in overcrowded tenements, their clothes stiff with dirt, their bodies washed only by rain. Even the wealthy, in their fine townhouses, rely on chamber pots and cesspits, their servants dumping waste into alleys or streams. Smell the city, a mix of coal, horse dung, and rotting food scraps. A constant reminder that Victoria's world is not clean, not by our standards. Yet within this world, the Queen is a beacon, her image polished to perfection, her hygiene a carefully curated myth. Her maids dab vinegar on her temples when headaches strike, not to clean but to soothe, to mask the ache with sharpness. Her gowns, brushed daily, carry the faint musk of her skin, the residue of long days spent ruling an empire. Now, dear listener, let's step back into the palace, into a quieter moment. It's evening, and Victoria is alone, or as alone as a queen can be, her maids hovering at the edges of the room. The fire crackles, sending shadows dancing across. The walls, the air heavy with the scent of burning wood and wax. She lifts a handkerchief, embroidered with her initials, soaked in rose water, and presses it to her face. The gesture is small, almost tender, but it's not about comfort, it's about control. To be a queen is to be untouchable, to rise above the filth that surrounds her, to smell of flowers when the world smells of soot. Her hair, pinned tightly, gleams with pomade, its greasy sheen hidden by the candlelight. Her skin, dusted with powder, feels dry, almost brittle, the lead in her cosmetics sinking deeper with each application. This is her routine, day after day, a ritual of masking, of layering, of pretending that the body beneath the crown is as pure as the empire she rules. Let's pause here, in the stillness of her chamber, and consider the weight of that crown. Not just the gold and jewels, but the expectation it carries. Victoria was no mere figurehead. She was a symbol, a mother to her nation, a widow to her people after Albert's death in 1861. Her mourning blacks, heavy and unyielding, became her armor, but they also trapped the heat, the sweat, the truth of her body. Smell the faint staleness of her gown, the lavender cessace, losing their battle against time. Hear the soft creak of her corset, the rustle of petticoats as she moves. Feel the itch of wool against her skin, the faint dampness where fabric meets flesh. This is the reality of her reign, not the glittering balls or the imperial decrees, but the daily struggle to appear divine in a world that stinks of humanity. Her courtiers, her maids, her subjects, they all play their part, pretending not to notice the odors, the stains, the cracks in the illusion. They bow, they smile, they breathe through their handkerchiefs, because to acknowledge the dirt is to acknowledge that the queen is human, and that, in Victoria's world, is unthinkable. Now, let's drift deeper into the era itself, for Victoria's habits were not hers alone. They were shaped by a time when cleanliness was a luxury, not a necessity, when water was suspect and soap was a rarity. Picture a physician, his coat dusted with snuff, advising against frequent bathing, his voice low and authoritative. Water weakens the constitution, he says, offering instead a vial of herbal tonic, its scent sharp and medicinal. Smell the bitterness of it, the faint tank of alcohol and thyme as it's poured into a glass for the queen. Feel the weight of his words, rooted in the medical wisdom of the day, a wisdom that feared open pores more than dirt. The poor outside, the palace walls bathed even less, their bodies caked with the grime of labor, their clothes patched and worn until they fell apart. Even the middle classes, with their new wealth from industry, rarely scrubbed their skin, relying instead on scented powders and colognes to mask the inevitable. This was a world where smell was status, where a whiff of lavender marked you as refined, while the stench of sweat marked you as common. Imagine the queen's maids, their hands rough from lye and ash, preparing her for the day. They brush her gowns, not with water, but with stiff bristles, sweeping away dust but leaving the deeper stains untouched. They pin her hair, their fingers slick with pomade, the scent of cloves clinging to their skin. They pour rose water into a silver basin, the faint splash echoing in the quiet room, and pass a cloth gently over her face, her neck, her hands. This is not cleaning as we know it, but a ritual, a performance, a way to make the queen seem untouchable. Smell the rose water, sharp and floral, as it evaporates into the air. Hear the soft rustle of linen as they change her shift, the fabric slightly yellowed from days of wear. Feel the weight of expectation, the need to maintain the illusion, even in these private moments. The maids say nothing, their eyes lowered, their movements precise. Because to comment on the queen's body, its sweat, its odor, its humanity, is to risk her displeasure. Let's step outside again, to the gardens of Buckingham Palace, where the air might seem fresher, but only just. The neatly trimmed hedges, the gravel paths, the roses blooming in orderly rows, they can't fully mask the city beyond. Smell the faint decay from the nearby Thames, the river that carries London's waste to the sea. Hear the distant cries of street vendors, their voices mingling with the clatter of carts and the lowing of cattle driven through the streets. This is the world that surrounds the palace, a world of progress and poverty, of factories belching smoke and children playing in gutters. The queen, insulated by her walls and her wealth, is not immune to its smells, its sounds, its truths. Her palace, for all its grandeur, is a microcosm of this world, its corridors echoing with the same contradictions, beauty and filth, power and vulnerability, fragrance and decay. Now, picture Victoria at a state dinner, her table gleaming with silver and crystal, her guests resplendent in their finery. The air is thick with the scent of roasted meats, spiced wine, and the ever-present coal smoke drifting from the fireplaces. Her gown, black and heavy, catches the candlelight, its embroidery glinting like stars. But beneath the table, her feet, encased in tight boots, ache from hours of standing. Her corset, laced to the point of discomfort, presses against her skin, trapping the heat of the room. Smell the faint musk of her body, the lavender sachets sewn into her hem doing their best to keep up. Her courtiers, seated around her, are no cleaner, their wigs powdered with starch, their gloves scented with bergamot, their bodies layered in fabrics that haven't seen water in weeks. They raise their glasses, their voices soft and deferential. But the air tells a different story, one of sweat and wine and the faint sourness of breath too long ignored. Let's linger on this scene, dear listener, and let the sounds fade, the clink of cutlery, the murmur of polite conversation, the crackle of the fire. Imagine the queen rising, her movements slow and deliberate, her maids hovering to adjust her train. The room falls silent, all eyes on her, but no one mentions the faint whiff of her gown, the slight sheen of sweat on her brow, the way her smile hides the ache of a tooth beginning to rot. This is the Victorian court, a place where appearances are everything, where the queen's humanity is buried beneath layers of silk and scent. Her hygiene, like that of her subjects, is a matter of illusion, a delicate dance of rose water and powder, of brushed fabrics and hidden chamber pots. It's a world where cleanliness is not about health, but about power, about maintaining the myth of a monarch who is more than human, even as her body betrays her with every breath. Now, let's drift back to the palace's quieter corners, to the servants' quarters where the real work happens. Picture a young maid, her hands chapped from cold water, scrubbing a chamber pot with vinegar and a rag. Smell the sharp bite of the vinegar, the faint ammonia of the pot's contents, the rosemary she sprinkles to dull the odor. Hear the soft slosh of water as she works, the creak of the floorboards under her feet. This is the unseen labor that keeps the palace running, the labor that allows the queen to float above the filth. The maids don't complain, they can't but. Their noses know the truth, their hands feel it, their eyes see it in the stains they can't fully erase. They empty the pots, brush the gowns, polish the silver, all while the court above pretends the world is clean, that the queen is pristine, that the palace smells only of roses and wax. Let's pause here. In the dim light of the servants' corridor, and consider the scale of this pretense. Victoria's reign saw the rise of industry, the spread of railways, the birth of modern science, yet hygiene lagged behind. Germ theory was still decades away, and the connection between dirt and disease was barely understood. Doctors, in their starched collars, prescribed tonics and purges, not baths. The poor bathed in rivers, if at all. The rich relied on colognes and powders. Even in the palace, where wealth was no obstacle, cleanliness was a matter of appearance, not reality. Smell the air, again the faint sweetness of lavender, the sharp edge of vinegar, the underlying musk of bodies and waste. This is the scent of Victoria's world, a scent she carried with her. From her morning toilette to her evening prayers, from the throne room to the bedroom where she mourned her husband. Now, imagine the Queen in her later years, her body heavier, her joints stiff, from decades of corsets and duty. She's still in black, her widow's weeds a constant reminder of loss, their fabric absorbing the sweat of long summers and cold winters. Her hair, once dark and glossy, is now thin, coated in pomade that smells of cloves and grease. Her skin, powdered to hide the lines of age, feels tight, almost suffocating. The lead in her cosmetics sinking deeper with each passing year. Smell the rosewater she dabs on her wrists, the faint bitterness of laudanum she takes for pain, the coal smoke that clings to everything. Her maids, ever silent, adjust her gown, smooth her hair, and pour fresh water into the basin. But it's not for washing, it's for rinsing, for refreshing, for maintaining the illusion that has defined her reign. Let's step back, dear listener, and let the palace fade for a moment. Picture the wider world. The Empire Victoria rules, from the factories of Manchester to the colonies across the sea. Everywhere, the same story plays out. Progress on the surface, filth beneath. The streets of London are paved with ambition, but also with mud, manure, and the waste of a million lives. The palace, for all its grandeur, is no different. Its walls may be marble, its ceilings gilded, but its air is heavy with the truth of human bodies, human habits, human limits. Victoria, at the heart of it all, is both ruler and prisoner. Her body a canvas for the myth of monarchy, her hygiene a performance for a court that demands perfection. Smell the lavender, the vinegar, the coal smoke. Hear the rustle of silk, the clink of silver, the distant slosh of a chamber pot. This is her world, and we're only beginning to uncover its secrets. Now, as you settle deeper into your pillow, let the sounds of Victorian England soften the clatter of hooves, the murmur of the court, the crackle of a dying fire. The Queen, for all her power, was bound by the same rules as her subjects. Rules that said water was dangerous, that cleanliness was a scent, not a state. Her sponge baths, her unwashed hair, her reused cloths, her rotting teeth, these were not failures, but facts, as ordinary as the cobblestones outside her palace. Yet she rose above them, or seemed to, with every dab of rosewater, every layer of powder, every perfumed glove. This is the story we'll tell, segment by segment, as we drift through the filth and fragrance of her reign. For now, let the palace's warmth envelop you, let its smells both sweet and sour fade into the background, and let your mind begin to drift, carried by the gentle rhythm of history toward a quiet, restful sleep. Dear friends, let your mind soften, let the weight of the day slip away, and drift with me into the quiet intimacy of Queen Victoria's private chambers. The gaslights are dim, casting a golden glow across the room, where heavy velvet curtains block the London chill. The air is warm, slightly stale, carrying the faint scent of lavender and the sharper tamps of coal smoke seeping through the window frames. It's here, in this hushed space, that we find the Queen preparing for one of her rare bathing rituals, not the luxurious soaks of modern imagination, but a quick, cautious sponge bath, a fleeting encounter with water that speaks more to duty than to cleanliness. Picture the scene: a porcelain basin on a mahogany stand, steam curling from its surface, a linen cloth folded neatly beside it. This is no daily routine. Victoria, like her subjects, bathed sparingly, perhaps once a week, sometimes less guided by a world that saw water as a risk, not a remedy. Let's linger here in the soft rustle of silk and the gentle splash of water as we uncover the unwashed truth of a queen's hygiene, a truth hidden beneath layers of perfume and poise. Breathe deeply, dear listener. Let the hum of these words carry you, and imagine the palace settling into silence as we begin. Step closer now, and see the Queen seated on a cushioned chair, her small frame wrapped in a loose dressing gown of fine muslin, its hem brushing the polished floor. Her maids move with practiced grace, their footsteps muffled on the thick carpet, their hands steady as they prepare the basin. Smell the faint floral note of the water, infused with rose petals or lavender oil, a luxury meant to mask the reality that this is no thorough cleansing. The water is tepid, poured from a silver ewer, its surface shimmering in the candlelight. Hear the soft clink of the ewer against the basin, the faint drip as a maid weights the cloth, wringing it with a gentle twist. Victoria's face is calm, her eyes half closed, as if surrendering to the ritual. But there's no eagerness here, no delight in the act. Bathing, in her world, is not about comfort or health, it's a necessity to be endured. A brief concession to the body's demands before the armor of royalty is donned again. Feel the damp cloth as it touches her skin, cool at first, then warming against her neck, her arms, her hands. The maid's touch is light, almost reverent, dabbing rather than scrubbing, as if water itself might offend the Queen's dignity. Let's pause and consider why this moment is so rare. In Victorian England, water was not the friend we know today. Physicians, their voices heavy with authority, warned that frequent bathing could weaken the body, open the pores to disease, or invite chills that might linger into fever. Picture a doctor, his spectacles glinting in the firelight, advising the Queen against immersing herself in a tub. "A sponge bath, Your Majesty," he murmurs, "is sufficient to refresh without risk." Smell the faint bitterness of his tonic, a mix of herbs and alcohol, offered as a safer alternative to water's dangers. This was the wisdom of the age, rooted in centuries of mistrust, in a time before germ theory revealed the link between dirt and disease. So Victoria, like her court, bathed sparingly, her skin touched by water only when necessity demanded it. The basin before her, its water barely clouded, is used not to cleanse deeply but to refresh the surface, to pat away the day's sweat without disturbing the royal aura. Imagine the maid's hands now, moving with care, the cloth gliding over. Victoria's wrists, where the skin is soft but slightly tacky from days without washing. The water carries a faint scent of lavender, but it's not enough to erase the musk of her body, the subtle warmth that clings to her after hours in heavy gowns. Hear the soft rustle of her dressing gown as she shifts, the creak of the chair. Beneath her, the distant crackle of a fire in the grate. The room is warm, almost stifling, the air thick with the scent of wax from candles and the faint coal smoke that never quite leaves the palace. The maid dips the cloth again, the water splashing gently, and presses it to the queen's forehead, where a faint sheen of perspiration gathers. This is not a bath as we know it, no soap suds, no vigorous scrubbing, no rush of clean water rinsing. Away the day. It's a ritual of restraint, a delicate dance between necessity and caution, where the goal is not cleanliness, but the appearance of it. Now, let's step back and see the broader picture, the world that shaped this ritual. Picture Buckingham Palace, its grand halls echoing with the footsteps of courtiers, its walls adorned with portraits and gilt. But beneath the splendor, the palace is a place of practical limits. There are no pipes carrying hot water, no tiled bathrooms with gleaming faucets. Water must be hauled by hand, heated over fires, poured into basins or tubs with careful effort. Smell the faint dampness of the stone walls, the musty scent of tapestries that trap dust and smoke. The servants who tend the queen's bath are the same who empty chamber pots, scrub floors with lye, and carry coal to keep the fires burning, their hands rough and red. Know the truth of the palace's filth, the truth that no amount of lavender can hide. Hear the clatter of buckets in the corridors, the soft grunt of a maid lifting a heavy ewer, the distant slosh of waste being carried to the cesspit outside. This is the unseen labor that supports the queen's brief encounters with water, a labor that never fully conquers the grime. Let's linger on the basin itself, a simple object that tells a complex story. It's porcelain, painted with delicate flowers, a relic of wealth in a world where such things are rare. But its water is used sparingly, changed only once, if at all, during the ritual. Feel the cloth, now slightly gritty, as it picks up the day's dust from Victoria's skin, the faint oiliness of her neck where sweat has settled. The maid wrings it out, the water darkening slightly. But there's no soap to cut through the grease, no hot water to rinse it clean. Soap, in the early years of Victoria's reign, is a luxury, taxed heavily and reserved for the wealthy. And even then, it's used sparingly. The Queen's bath relies instead on scented water, on herbs and oils that mimic cleanliness without achieving it. Smell the rosewater, sharp and fleeting, as it evaporates into the air. Hear the soft drip as the maid sets the cloth aside, the basin now still, its surface reflecting the candlelight like a tiny, perfect mirror. Now picture Victoria rising. From her chair, her dressing gown falling back into place, its muslin slightly damp where the cloth has brushed her skin. Her maids step forward, one with a fresh linen towel, another with a vial of lavender oil to dab on her wrists and neck. Feel the towel's texture, soft but slightly coarse, as it pats her skin dry, leaving a faint residue of the scented water. Smell the lavender, stronger now, mingling with the faint musk of her body, a scent that will linger through the day. The ritual is over, but it's not about feeling clean, it's about feeling royal, about maintaining the illusion of a queen untouched by the ordinary filth of the world. Her maids bow slightly, their eyes lowered as they gather the basin, and cloth their hands careful not to spill a drop. The room settles back into silence, the fires crackle the only sound, the air heavy with the sense of lavender, wax, and the ever-present coal smoke. Let's step outside the chamber for a moment, into the wider world of Victorian hygiene. Imagine a London household, not a palace but a modest home of the rising middle class. Here, too, bathing is rare, a weekly or monthly affair at best. Picture a family gathered around a tin tub, the water murky from shared use, the same cloth, passed from one person to another. Smell the faint sourness of the water, the herbal temps of rosemary or thyme added to make it seem fresher. Hear the splash as a child is quickly scrubbed, the mother's voice urging haste to avoid catching a chill. This is the reality for most of Victoria's subjects, a reality shaped by fear and practicality. Water is heavy, hard to heat, hard to carry, and the poor, in their cramped tenements, might go months without a proper wash, their bodies caked with the soot of the city. Even the wealthy, with their servants and silver ewers, share the Queen's caution, their baths more about scent than sanitation. Now, return to the palace, to the Queen's dressing room, where the ritual continues. The maids are preparing her for the day, their hands busy with corsets and petticoats, their movements swift but silent. Victoria stands, her body still warm from the sponge bath, her skin faintly sticky despite the cloth's efforts. Smell the lavender oil, now stronger as it's rubbed into her wrists, a scent meant to linger through audiences and dinners. Feel the weight of her undergarments, linen shifts that haven't been washed in days, their fabrics slightly stiff from sweat. The maids lace her corset, the whalebone creaking as it tightens, trapping the warmth of her body, the faint musk that no amount of rosewater can erase. This is the paradox of Victoria's hygiene. Every effort to appear clean only highlights the limits of her world, a world where water is scarce, soap is rare, and cleanliness is a performance, not a state. Let's linger on the maids themselves, these silent architects of the Queen's image. Picture a young woman, her apron stained from kitchen work, her hands red from scrubbing with lye. She's been up since dawn, hauling water, tending fires, emptying pots. Smell the faint vinegar on her fingers, the sharp scent of the cleaning rags she uses to wipe the basin clean. Hear the soft clink of the ewer as she sets it aside, the rustle of her skirt as she moves to the next task. Her role is to make the Queen seem flawless, to erase the evidence of sweat, of odor, of humanity. But she knows the truth, sees it in the basin's cloudy water, feels it in the damp cloth she wrings out. She says nothing. Of course, her silence is part of the job, part of the illusion that keeps the palace running. The Queen, for all her power, depends on these hands, these quiet women who carry the weight of her hygiene in their calloused palms. Now, imagine the Queen stepping into the public eye, her sponge bath behind her, her body layered in silk and scent. Picture a grand hall, the air thick with the chatter of courtiers, the clink of glasses, the rustle of crinolines. Victoria moves among them, her head high, her gloves perfumed with violet, her face dusted with powder to hide the flush of a warm room. Smell the mix of scents round her: bergamot from a lord's cologne, rose from a lady's handkerchief, the faint sourness of breath sharpened by wine. Her courtiers mimic her, their own hygiene as carefully staged, their bodies hidden beneath layers of fabric and fragrance. But the truth is there, in the air, in the faint musk that clings to their skin, in the dampness of their gloves, in the way they hold their pomanders close, as if a whiff of herbs could banish the reality of their bodies. Let's pause and reflect on the tools of this ritual, the objects that define Victoria's baths. The basin, simple yet elegant, is a symbol of wealth, but its water tells a humbler story. It's used sparingly, poured once and left to cool, its surface barely disturbed by the cloth. The linen itself, soft but worn, carries the faint stains of previous uses, a reminder that even the Queen's washcloths are not truly clean. Smell the lavender oil, kept in a glass vial, its stopper worn smooth by years of use. Feel the weight of the silver ewer, its handle cool under the maid's hand, its spout dripping as it's tilted. These are the instruments of royalty, but they're also the instruments of limitation, of a world where water is rationed, where cleanliness is a luxury few can afford. Even the queen, with her armies of servants, cannot escape the constraints of her time. The belief that too much water might harm more than help. Now, picture the palace at night, the halls quiet, the candles burned low. Victoria is in her bedchamber, her sponge bath a distant memory, her body now dressed for sleep in a long nightgown, its linen slightly yellowed from wear. The air is heavy, the windows closed against the night's chill, the scent of lavender lingering on her skin but fading against the warmth of her body. Hear the soft creak of the bed as she settles, the rustle of sheets that haven't been washed in weeks. The maids have retired, their basins and cloths stored away, their hands still tingling from the day's work. But the palace never truly. Sleep somewhere, a servant is emptying a chamber pot. Another is stoking a fire. Another is brushing a gown that will be worn again tomorrow, its stains hidden but not gone. This is the rhythm of Victoria's world, a rhythm of effort and illusion, where the queen's hygiene is a carefully choreographed act, a way to rise above the filth without ever truly escaping it. Let's step back, dear listener, and consider the wider implications of this ritual. Victoria's sponge baths were not just personal, they were political. To be clean, or to seem clean, was to assert power, to stand apart from the masses who toiled in the soot of London's factories or the mud of its streets. Her courtiers, her maids, her subjects, they all played their part, dabbing their own skin with scented water, brushing their own gowns, hiding their own odors. Smell the city again, the Thames with its reek of sewage, the alleys with their piles of refuse, the air thick with coal and despair. The palace, for all its grandeur, is part of this city, its walls no barrier to the truths of the age. Victoria's baths, brief and cautious, are a mirror of her time, a time when cleanliness was a dream, not a reality, when even a queen could not wash away the grime of her world. Now, let's linger on one final image, a moment of stillness in the queen's chamber. The basin has been cleared, the candles snuffed, the fire reduced to embers. Victoria sits at her writing desk, a shawl around her shoulders, her pen scratching across paper as she records her day in her journal. Smell the ink, sharp and metallic, the wax of the seal she used to close her letter. Feel the faint dampness of her skin, still carrying the memory of the sponge bath. The lavender oil now faint against the warmth of her body. Hear the soft tick of a clock, the distant creak of the palace settling into the night. This is the queen at her most human, a woman bound by the habits of her time. Her hygiene a delicate balance of necessity and illusion. Her sponge baths, so rare and so brief, are not a failure but a fact, a reflection of a world that valued scent over soap, appearance over health. As you drift closer to sleep, dear listener, let the palace fade. Let the scents lavender, coal, musk blend into a soft hum, like the fan you might have turned on to soothe you. The queen's world, for all its filth, was one of resilience, of navigating limits with grace and determination. Her sponge baths, her careful dabs of rosewater, her perfumed gloves, they were her armor, her way of ruling a world that demanded perfection while offering only imperfection. Let the rhythm of her life, the rustle of her gowns, the splash of her basin carry you now into a quiet place where history whispers and sleep waits just beyond the next breath. This is only the beginning, dear friends, of our journey through Victoria's hidden habits. But for now, let the stillness take you, let the palace's secrets fade, and let your dreams begin where her reality ends. Dear friends, Let your thoughts soften, your breath slow, and drift with me into the quiet warmth of Queen Victoria's dressing room, where the day begins, not with a rush, but with a gentle ritual as delicate as the morning light. The air is soft, heavy with the scent of lavender and the faint, greasy temps of pomade, a reminder that we're far from the clean, shampooed world we know. Picture the Queen seated before a mahogany vanity, its surface cluttered with silver combs, jeweled, pins, and a small glass vial of rose-scented oil. Her hair, dark and once lustrous, is pinned loosely, waiting for the careful hands of her maids. In Victorian England, hair was a crown of its own, a symbol of beauty and status. But it was rarely washed, perhaps once a month, if at all. Victoria's locks, coiled into elegant styles, hid a secret beneath the gleam of pins and the sheen of pomade. Her hair was greasy, matted, carrying the weight of days spent in a world that distrusted water. Let's linger here in the rustle of silk and the soft scrape of a brush as we uncover the unwashed truth of the Queen's hair, a truth woven into the fabric of her era. Settle deeper, dear listener. Let the hum of these words wrap around you, and imagine the palace's stillness as we begin. Step closer now and see Victoria in the candlelight. Her small frame swathed in a muslin dressing gown, its hem brushing the floor. The room is warm, the fire crackling softly in the grate, its smoke mingling with the faint coal dust that seeps through the windows. A maid stands behind her, holding a boar-bristle brush, its handle worn smooth from years of use. Hear the faint scrape as the brush glides through the Queen's hair, catching slightly on strands that haven't seen water in weeks. Smell the pomade, a thick blend of animal fat and cloves, rubbed into her scalp to tame the frizz and add a false shine. The scent is heavy, almost cloying, masking the natural musk of unwashed hair, the faint oiliness that builds day after day. Victoria sits still, her eyes fixed on the mirror, her expression calm but distant, as if lost in the rhythm of the ritual. This is not a moment of cleansing, but of crafting, of building the image of a queen whose hair must appear as flawless as her rule. Let's pause and breathe in the scene. The vanity is a small world of its own, a stage for the daily performance of royalty. Picture the tools laid out: a silver comb, its teeth slightly bent from use; a powder box filled with starch to dull the grease; a vial of lavender oil, its stopper stained from countless openings. Feel the weight of the brush in the maid's hand, its bristles tugging gently at Victoria's hair, pulling through knots formed by sweat and time. The maid's movements are slow, deliberate, her fingers slick with pomade as she works it into the roots, the scent rising in waves, cloves, grease, a hint of something floral trying to break through. The hair itself, dark and heavy, is pinned into tight coils, each strand carefully placed to hide its true state. Smell the faint staleness, the residue of days spent in overheated rooms, of nights under a lace cap that traps warmth and oil. This is the reality of Victoria's hair care, a ritual less about cleanliness and more about illusion, where the goal is to make the Queen's locks seem pristine without the aid of water. Now, let's consider why washing was so rare. In Victorian England, hair was seen as a delicate thing, a natural crown that needed protection, not scrubbing. Water, as we've learned, was suspect, believed to weaken the scalp or invite illness through open pores. Picture a physician, his coat dusted, with snuff, leaning over a medical text by candlelight. Avoid frequent washing, he advises, his voice low and serious. lest the hair's natural oils be stripped, leaving it brittle. Smell the faint bitterness of his herbal remedies, offered as a safer alternative to soap and water. This was the science of the day, a science that prized the body's own oils over cleanliness, that saw washing as a risk rather than a necessity. So Victoria, like her subjects, washed her hair sparingly once a month, perhaps with a basin of warm water and a touch of vinegar to cut the grease, but never with the vigor we'd expect today. The result was hair that gleamed in public but felt heavy, sticky, a silent burden beneath her crown. Imagine the washing itself, a rare event that required planning, like a small ceremony. Picture a quiet morning in the palace, the maids gathered around a copper basin, its surface steaming with water heated over a kitchen fire. Hear the soft splash as a maid pours in a splash of vinegar, its sharp temps cutting through the air, followed by a handful of dried rosemary for fragrance. Victoria sits, her head tilted back, her eyes closed as the maid weights her hair strand by strand, using a cloth to avoid soaking the scalp. Feel the water, lukewarm and slightly gritty, as it drips down her neck, pooling in the basin below. The maid's hands are gentle, massaging the vinegar through the hair, loosening the grease, but never fully removing it. Smell the mix of scents: vinegar's bite, rosemary's earthiness, the underlying musk of unwashed scalp. This is no modern shampoo, no cascade of bubbles or rush of clean water. It's a slow, cautious process, the water used sparingly, the basin emptied quickly to avoid lingering evidence of the Queen's humanity. Let's linger on the maids, these silent keepers of the Queen's image. Picture a young woman, her apron slightly damp from the basin, her hands red from lye used elsewhere in the palace. She's been up since dawn, hauling water, brushing gowns, polishing silver. Now, her fingers work through Victoria's hair. Careful not to pull too hard. Careful not to disturb the Queen's calm. Smell the pomade on her hands, the cloves clinging to her skin, mingling with the faint sweat of her own labor. Hear the soft creak of the floorboards as she shifts her weight, the rustle of her skirt as she reaches for the comb. Her role is to make the Queen's hair seem effortless, to hide the grease, the knots, the truth beneath the pins. She says nothing. Of course, silence is her duty, but her hands know the weight of the task, the challenge of making unwashed hair look regal. The comb catches, the brush tugs, and still she works. Her movements a quiet rhythm that echoes the palace's larger dance of illusion. Now, step back and see the palace around this ritual. Buckingham Palace, with its marble halls and gilded ceilings, is a place of splendor, but also of limits. There are no pipes to carry hot water, no drains to whisk it away. Water for washing hair must be fetched from the kitchens, heated in heavy kettles, carried up narrow stairs by maids whose arms ache from the effort. Smell the faint dampness of the corridors, the musty scent of tapestries that trap dust and smoke. Hear the distant clatter of buckets, the soft grunt of a servant lifting a load. The palace's grandeur hides its practicality, its reliance on human hands to manage even the smallest tasks. The Queen's hair, like her body, is tended by these hands, by women who know the truth but never speak it, who brush and pin and perfume to keep the myth alive. The basin, once emptied, is carried away, its contents tipped into a cesspit outside, joining the waste of the entire court. Let's pause and consider the tools of this ritual, the objects that shape Victoria's hair care. The brush, with its boar bristles, is a relic of craftsmanship, its handle carved with roses, but its bristles are worn, stained with years of pomade. Feel its weight, the slight resistance as it pulls through greasy strands. The comb, silver and delicate, is used to tease out knots, its teeth catching on matted hair, the maid's hand steady to avoid pain. The pomade kept in a small jar is a thick paste of lard and spices, its scent heavy with cloves and a hint of cinnamon, applied to give the hair a false shine. Smell the grease, warm from the maid's fingers as it's worked into the scalp, leaving a slick residue that clings through the day. The powder, starch, or ground orris root is dusted lightly to dull the shine of grease, its faint floral scent battling the musk beneath. These are the instruments of Victorian beauty, tools that mask rather than clean, that build an image rather than maintain health. Now, picture Victoria stepping into the public eye, her hair pinned into a tight chignon, its surface gleaming with pomade, its pins sparkling with pearls or jet. The court is assembled, the air thick with the chatter of lords and ladies, the clink of silver, the rustle of crinolines. Her hair is a masterpiece, a symbol of her status, but it's also a burden, heavy with grease, itching slightly under the weight of its own oils. Smell the cloves wafting from her scalp, the lavender oil dabbed at her temples to mask the staleness. Feel the faint stickiness where her hair brushes her neck, the slight warmth trapped by her lace cap. Her courtiers, their own hair powdered and perfumed, mimic her style, their wigs and curls as unwashed as her own. They hold pomanders, small orbs of herbs, to their noses, not because the queen smells, but because the air itself is heavy. A mix of sweat, wine, and the ever-present coal smoke that defines London. Let's step outside the palace for a moment, to the wider world of Victorian hair care. Imagine a middle-class home, its parlour lit by a single lamp, where a mother brushes her daughter's hair with a wooden comb, its teeth catching on greasy strands. Smell the homemade pomade, a mix of tallow and herbs, rubbed in to make the hair lie flat. Hear the soft tug of the brush, the child's quiet complaint as a knot is pulled free. Washing is a rare event, reserved for special occasions. Done with rainwater collected in a barrel, warmed over a fire, and scented with whatever herbs the family can afford. The poor, in their crowded tenements, have even less hair matted with soot, lice a constant threat, water too scarce to spare for washing. Even the wealthy, with their servants and silver combs, rarely wash their hair, relying on powders and oils to maintain the illusion of cleanliness. This is the world Victoria inhabits, a world where hair is a canvas for status, not hygiene, where grease is a fact of life, not a flaw. Now, return to the Queen's dressing room, where the ritual continues. The maid is finishing her work, pinning the last strand into place, her fingers deft despite the slickness of the pomade. Victoria's hair is now a sculpture, its coils tight, its surface smooth, its secrets hidden beneath layers of artifice. Feel the weight of the pins, heavy with jewels, pressing against her scalp. Smell the cloves, now stronger, mingling with the faint lavender of her gloves, the coal smoke that clings to her gown. The mirror reflects a queen, her hair a crown of its own. But the maid knows the truth, the grease, the knots, the faint itch that will grow through the day. She steps back, her apron slightly crumpled, her hands still warm from the pomade, and bows. Victoria rises, her movements slow, her body already feeling the weight of the day's duties, the weight of a hairdo that must last until the next rare wash. Let's linger on the cultural weight of hair, for it was more than a personal matter, it was a social one. In Victorian England, hair was a woman's glory, a sign of her virtue, her class, her beauty. Picture a young lady at a ball, her curls piled high, dusted with powder to mimic the queen's style. Smell the starch, faint and floral, as it settles into her hair, masking the grease beneath. Hear the soft rustle of her silk dress as she moves, the pins in her hair catching the candlelight. Her hair, like Victoria's, is rarely washed, its shine the work of oils, not water. The men, too, follow suit, their sideburns slick with macassar oil, their hats hiding scalps that itch from days of neglect. Smell the oil, heavy with sandalwood, as it stains the antimacassars on their chairs, a testament to the era's reliance on grease to tame hair. This is a society obsessed with appearances, where hair is brushed, pinned, and perfumed to perfection, but rarely cleaned, rarely free of the grime that builds beneath the surface. Now, imagine Victoria in her later years, her hair thinner, grayer, hidden beneath lace caps and mourning veils. The pomade is still there, its cloves sharper now to mask the scalp's natural odor. But the ritual is slower, the maid's hands more careful. Feel the brush, its bristles gentler on fragile strands, the comb avoiding the thinning patches. Smell the lavender oil, applied with a lighter touch, as if to preserve what little hair remains. The mirror shows a queen aged by time, her hair no longer the dark cascade of her youth, but the ritual remains, a daily act of defiance against the body's truths. The maids, ever silent, work with the same care, their fingers slick with grease, their aprons carrying the faint scent of vinegar from other tasks. The palace, too, has aged, its walls a little darker with soot, its air a little heavier with the weight of years. Yet the illusion persists, the queen's hair pinned and perfumed, a symbol of a reign that refuses to falter. Let's pause and reflect on the sensory world of this ritual. The dressing room is a cocoon, its air thick with the scents of cloves, lavender and coal. The brushes scrape, the combs tug, the soft clink of pins on the vanity, they form a quiet symphony, a rhythm that lulls the queen and her maids into a shared trance. Feel the pomade slickness, the powder's dustiness, the faint dampness of the lace cap as it's placed over the finished style. Smell the grease, the herbs, the faint musk that lingers despite every effort. This is not a world of clean scalps or flowing water, but of effort, of artifice, of making do with what the era allows. Victoria's hair, like her body, is a canvas for her role, a surface to be polished, not purified. Her maids, her tools, her scents, they all serve the same purpose, to make her seem more than human, to hide the grease and grime that mark her. As mortal now, picture the court once more, the queen moving among her nobles, her hair a perfect chignon beneath a jeweled tiara. The air is alive with sound, the murmur of voices, the clink of glasses, the rustle of silk. Her hair, though unwashed, is a triumph, its pins catching the light, its pomade giving it a false shine. Smell the cloves, faint but persistent, as she passes, the lavender oil blending with the violet of her gloves, her courtier's bow, their own hair styled with the same care, the same oils, the same powders. No one speaks of the grease, the itch, the faint odor that clings to every scalp. They smile, they nod, they hold their pomanders close, because to acknowledge the truth is to break the spell, to admit that the queen, like them, is bound by the limits of her time. This is the Victorian court, a place of beauty and deception, where hair is a crown, but also a burden, heavy with the weight of unwashed days. Let's step back, dear listener, and let the palace fade for a moment. Picture London beyond the walls, its streets crowded with people whose hair tells the same story. The poor, their heads wrapped in scarves, lice crawling through matted strands. The middle class, their hair brushed and oiled, but rarely washed, their combs shared among family members. The wealthy, their wigs and curls dusted with powder, their scalps itching beneath the artifice. Smell the citical smoke, horse dung, the faint herbal tang of makeshift hair tonics. This is the world that shaped Victoria's habits, a world where hair was a symbol, not a surface to be cleaned. Her maids, her court, her subjects, they all shared this reality. Their hair a mirror of their status, their struggles, their compromises. The Queen, for all her power, was no exception. Her locks as unwashed as those of her people, her beauty as much a performance as her rule. Now, imagine the palace at night, the dressing room empty, the vanity cleared, the brush and comb rest. Silently, their bristles still holding traces of pomade, their handles cool in the dark. The vial of lavender oil sits closed, its scent lingering faintly in the air. Victoria sleeps, her hair loosened beneath a lace cap, its grease spreading onto the pillow, its pins scattered on the bedside table. Hear the soft creak of the bed, the distant crackle of a dying fire, the faint hum of the palace settling into the night. The maids are gone, their hands resting at last, their aprons folded until dawn. But the ritual will begin again tomorrow. The brush, the comb, the pomade, all working to maintain the illusion, to keep the Queen's hair as regal as her crown. This is her world, a world of grease and fragrance, of effort and artifice, where cleanliness is a dream deferred, a hope for a future her era cannot yet imagine. As you drift closer to sleep. Dear friends, let the scents of the dressing room, lavender, coal blend into a soft haze, like the hum of a fan in your own room. Victoria's hair, unwashed and heavy, was no failing, but a fact of her time, a reflection of a world that valued appearance over hygiene, scent over soap. Her maids, with their steady hands and silent tongues, were the keepers of this truth. Their brushes and combs, the tools of a delicate deception. Let the rhythm of their work, the scrape of the brush, the clink of the pins, lull you now, carrying you deeper into the quiet of history. The Queen's locks, like her reign, were a triumph of will over reality, a testament to the power of illusion. In a world of grime, for now, let the palace's warmth envelop you, let its secrets fade into the shadows, and let your dreams begin where Victoria's ritual ends. Dear friends, let your mind ease into the quiet of this moment, your breath slow and steady, as we slip into the most private corners of Queen Victoria's world. The palace is hushed, its grand halls dimmed by evening, the air heavy with the scent of wax and coal smoke. We're stepping into a space rarely spoken of, a hidden ritual that even the Queen, for all her power, could not escape the management of her monthly cycle. In Victorian England, menstruation was a shadowed subject, cloaked in silence and shame, managed with crude tools and whispered care. Picture a small chamber off Victoria's bedroom, a discreet sanctuary where her maids tend to her needs with linen cloths reused, minimally washed and stiff with the memory of past cycles. These cloths, folded and tucked beneath her heavy gowns, were the reality of her time, far from the disposable comforts we know today. Smell the faint metallic temps in the air, feel the coarse texture of damp linen, hear the soft rustle of a maid's apron as she works in silence. This is a story of intimacy and necessity, of a queen's humanity hidden behind the myth of her crown. So, settle deeper, dear listener. Let the gentle hum of these words wrap around you, and drift with me into the palace's quiet shadows as we begin. Imagine Victoria in her private apartments, the fire casting a soft glow across the room, its crackle the only sound breaking the stillness. She's seated on a cushioned stool, her black silk gown loosened, her corset slightly eased to allow for comfort. A maid, her face calm and unreadable, kneels nearby, a basket of linen cloths at her side. These cloths, cut from worn bedsheets or coarse flax, are the tools of the Queen's monthly rituals, simple, practical, but far from clean. Smell the faint sourness clinging to them, the residue of previous uses that no amount of scrubbing can fully erase. The palace, for all its grandeur, lacks the means to wash these cloths thoroughly. Water is scarce, soap a luxury, and the laundry process a labor of hands and lie. Feel the texture of the cloth as the maid folds it, its surface rough, slightly damp from a quick rinse in cold water scented with vinegar. Hear the soft creak of the basket as she lifts another, the faint drip of water as she wrings it out, careful not to meet the Queen's eyes. This is a moment of vulnerability, a rare glimpse of Victoria not as monarch, but as a woman bound by the body's demands. Let's pause and breathe in the scene, dear listener. The room is warm, almost stifling, the air thick with the scent of lavender from a sachet tucked into Victoria's sleeve, battling the faint metallic temps that lingers. The cloth, pinned carefully beneath her petticoats, is a constant presence, its weight a reminder of the cycle that comes each month. In our world, we might imagine disposable pads or tampons, changed frequently and discarded without thought. But in Victoria's time, such things were unthinkable. Linen cloths, reused month after month, were the norm, even for a queen. They were rinsed in cold water, scrubbed with lye when possible, and hung to dry in a hidden corner of the palace, far from prying eyes. Smell the vinegar used to clean them, sharp and biting, cutting through the air but never fully masking the blood's faint iron scent. Feel the stiffness of the cloth, its fibers worn but unyielding, chafing slightly against the skin. This is not comfort, but necessity. A ritual performed in silence to preserve the Queen's dignity in a world that shunned such truths. Now, let's consider the cultural weight of this act. Menstruation, in Victorian England, was not just privateer, was taboo, a subject buried beneath layers of propriety. Picture a drawing room, ladies in crinolines, sipping tea, their voices low, never daring to mention the monthly indisposition. The word itself was avoided, replaced with euphemisms like unwell or out of sorts. Even in the palace, where Victoria's word was law, this silence held sway. Her maids, trained to anticipate her needs, knew the signs, her quieter mood, her request for looser gowns, but they spoke of it only in whispers, their hands moving quickly to manage the cloths without drawing attention. Hear the soft rustle of their aprons, the faint clink of a basin as they prepare to rinse a used cloth. Smell the lye, harsh and chemical, as it's poured into a bucket, the maid's hands red from its sting. This was a labor of discretion, a task that kept the Queen's humanity hidden, her body's rhythms cloaked in the myth of her untouchable status. Step closer now, and imagine the maids at work in a small, windowless room off the Queen's chambers. The air is damp, the stone walls cool to the touch, the only light coming from a single candle flickering on a wooden table. A bucket of cold water sits in the corner, its surface rippling as a maid dips a cloth, scrubbing it against a washboard with quick, practiced movements. Feel the roughness of the washboard, its ridges worn from years of use. the cloth's fibers catching as it's worked back and forth. Smell the vinegar, sharp and sour, mixed with a faint herbal note from rosemary tossed into the water to mask. The odor, the cloth, stained and heavy, is rinsed but never truly clean. The water is too cold, the lye too weak, the time too short. Hear the soft slosh as the maid wrings it out, the drip of water hitting the stone floor, the faint sigh as she sets it aside to dry. This is the unseen labor of the palace, the work that allows Victoria to step into the throne room as if untouched by the body's demands. Let's linger on the cloths themselves, these humble objects that carry such weight. Picture a stack of linens, folded neatly in a basket, their edges frayed from countless uses. They're cut from old sheets or coarse. Flax, their texture rough, even when new, now stiffened by repeated rinsing and drying. Feel the slight dampness as a maid pins one in place. Its surface cool against Victoria's skin, but warming quickly. Its weight a constant reminder of the task at hand. Smell the faint blood, the vinegar's sharp edge, the rosemary's fleeting freshness. These cloths are not disposable. They're a cycle of their own, washed and reused, their stains fading but never gone. The maids, with their chapped hands and lowered eyes, manage this cycle with care, knowing that a single misstep of cloth left visible. A stain not hidden could shatter the illusion of the Queen's perfection. Their silence is as much a tool as the cloths themselves, a shield against the world's judgment. Now, let's step back and see the broader world of Victorian menstrual hygiene. Imagine a working-class woman in a London tenement, her home crowded and damp, her cloths not linen but rags, scraps of old clothing to worn for other uses. She washes them in a shared basin, the water murky from her family's use, the air thick with the smell of coal and cooking grease. Hear the splash as she scrubs, the faint grunt of effort as she wrings the rag dry. The middle class, with their modest homes, fare little better. Their cloths might be linen, but they're still reused, still washed sparingly, still hidden from view. Even the wealthy, with their servants and silver basins, follow the same practices, their menstrual cloths rinsed in cold water, dried in secret, and stored for the next cycle. Smell the vinegar, the herbs, the faint blood that lingers despite every effort. This is the reality for all women in Victoria's England, a shared struggle that binds the Queen to her subjects, even as her palace walls set her apart. Return now to the Queen's chamber, where the ritual continues. Victoria stands, her gown adjusted, the cloth pinned securely beneath layers of petticoats and silk. The maid steps back, her basket empty, her hands still damp from the water. Feel the weight of the cloth, its bulk a subtle discomfort, its presence a secret known only to the Queen and her closest attendants. Smell the lavender sachet tucked into her sleeve, its scent a fragile defense against the cloth's faint odor. Hear the soft rustle of her skirts as she moves, the creak of her corset as it settles into place. The palace is waking now, the corridors filling with the sounds of servants, the clatter of breakfast trays, the distant chime of a clock. But this moment, this ritual, remains private, a hidden act that preserves the Queen's image as she steps into the public eye. Her maids, ever silent, clear the basin and bucket, their movements swift to erase any trace of the task. Let's pause and reflect on the sensory world of this ritual. The chamber is a cocoon, its air thick with the scents of vinegar, lavender, and the faint metallic temps of blood. The cloths, coarse and heavy, are a tactile reminder of the body's demands, their texture chafing against the skin, their weight shifting with every step. Hear the drip of water, the rustle of linen, the soft breath of the maid as she works. This is not a world of comfort or cleanliness, but of necessity, of making do with what the era allows. Victoria's menstrual cloths, like her sponge baths and unwashed hair, are a product of her time, a time when water was scarce, soap a luxury, and hygiene a performance. Her maids, with their steady hands and silent tongues, are the keepers of this performance, their labor a bridge between the Queen's humanity and her myth. Now, picture Victoria at a state dinner, her black gown gleaming in the candlelight, her hair pinned tightly beneath a lace cap. The cloth is still there, hidden beneath layers of silk, its presence a secret she carries with regal composure. The air is alive with sound, the clink of silver, the murmur of courtiers, the rustle of crinolines. Smell the wine, the roasted meats, the faint lavender wafting from the Queen's sleeve. Her courtiers, their own hygiene no better, smile and bow their handkerchiefs, scented with rose or bergamot, to mask the odors of the room. No one speaks of the cloths, the blood, the rituals that all women share. This is the Victorian court, a place of elegance and deception, where the body's truths are buried beneath layers of fabric and fragrance, where the Queen's dignity depends on silence. Let's step outside the palace for a moment, to the wider world of Victorian women. Picture a seamstress in a cramped workshop, her hands pricked by needles, her cloth pinned beneath her skirts, its dampness a constant irritation as she works. Smell the sweat, the dust, the faint blood that clings to her rag, rinsed in a bucket. Shared with her sisters, hear the soft creak of her chair, the hum of voices as she hides her discomfort from her employer. In the wealthier homes, ladies manage their cycles with more privacy, their maids rinsing linens in secluded rooms. But the process is the same: reused cloths, cold water, herbs to mask the smell. Smell the rosemary, the vinegar, the faint iron that lingers. This is a universal truth, a shared burden that crosses class lines, uniting the Queen with her subjects in a way no crown could. Now, imagine the palace at night, the chamber empty, the basket of cloths tucked away in a corner. The candle has burned low, its wax pooling on the table, its smoke curling into the air. Victoria sleeps, her nightgown loose, the cloth replaced for the night, its weight a familiar presence. Hear the soft creak of the bed, the distant crackle of a fire, the faint hum of the palace settling into silence. The maids are gone, their hands resting at last, their aprons folded until dawn. But the ritual will begin again, the cloths rinsed and dried, the basket refilled, the Queen's dignity preserved through their silent labor. This is her world, a world of hidden truths and careful illusions, where menstruation is a secret to be managed, not a fact to be faced. As you drift closer to sleep, dear friends, let the scents of the chamber vinegar, lavender blend into a soft haze, like the hum of a fan in your own room. Victoria's cloths, reused and rough, were no failing, but a fact of her time. A reflection of a world where hygiene was a luxury, where privacy was a privilege. Her maids, with their steady hands and silent tongues, were the keepers of this secret. Their labor a testament to the Queen's humanity and her power. Let the rhythm of their work, the drip of water, the rustle of linen, lull you now, carrying you deeper into the quiet of history. The Queen's monthly ritual, like her reign, was a triumph of will over reality, a delicate balance of necessity. An illusion, for now, let the palace's warmth envelop you, let its secrets fade into the shadows, and let your dreams begin where Victoria's ritual ends. Dear friends, let your eyes grow heavy, your breath ease into a gentle rhythm, and drift with me into the soft glow of Queen Victoria's private world, where the grandeur of her reign meets the quiet truths of her body. The palace is calm, its corridors lit by flickering gaslights, the air carrying the faint scent of wax and the ever-present coal smoke that clings to London's evenings. We're stepping into a delicate moment, one rarely whispered about, the state of the Queen's teeth, hidden behind her tight-lipped smile. Victoria, known for her love of sugary treats, candied fruits, marzipan, sugared almonds, paid a heavy price in her mouth, where decay took hold, blackening her teeth and souring her breath. In an era before modern dentistry, her dental care was a patchwork of clove oil, herbal rinses, and discreet extractions, all cloaked in the palace's silence to preserve her royal image. Picture her at a banquet, her lips barely parted, a handkerchief, scented with lavender pressed to her face to mask the truth. Smell the sharp bite of cloves, feel the ache of a throbbing molar, hear the soft clink of silver as she sips tea to soothe the pain. This is a story of sweetness and suffering, of a queen's humanity hidden beneath her crown. So, settle deeper. Dear listener, let the hum of these words wrap around you, and drift with me into the palace's shadows as we begin. Imagine Victoria in her private dining room, a small table set with delicate porcelain, a plate of sugared confections gleaming. In the candlelight, the air is warm, heavy with the scent of roasted meats and the sweet, sticky aroma of caramelized fruit. She reaches for a candied orange peel, its surface glistening, its sweetness a rare joy in her disciplined life. Taste the sugar as it melts. On her tongue, sharp and indulgent, a fleeting pleasure that lingers longer in her teeth. Feel the faint throb in her jaw, a molar darkened by decay, its ache dulled only by the clove oil her maid applied earlier. Hear the soft clink of her teacup as she sips, the bergamot-scented steam rising to mask the faint sourness of her breath. This is no modern smile, bright and polished. This is a queen's smile, guarded and careful, hiding the damage wrought by her love for sweets in a world with little to offer but pain and pretense. Let's pause and breathe in the scene. Dear listener, the room is intimate, the fire crackling softly, its warmth blending with the heavy air of the palace. Victoria's maids hover nearby, their aprons rustling as they clear plates, their eyes averted from the Queen's discreet discomfort. A small, silver tray holds her dental remedies, a vial of clove oil, its scent sharp and medicinal, a linen cloth soaked in mint water, a tiny spoon for scraping the tongue. Smell the cloves, their spicy bite cutting through the room's sweetness. A desperate attempt to soothe the ache and mask the odor. Feel the cloth, damp and cool, as a maid gently dabs it against the Queen's lips, careful not to press too hard on tender gums. Hear the faint scrape of the spoon, the soft sigh as Victoria adjusts her position, the pain a constant companion beneath her regal poise. This is her daily ritual, not of cleanliness but of concealment, a careful dance, too. Keep her smile lore, the lack of it hidden from the court dot. Now, let's consider why her teeth suffered so. In Victorian England, sugar was a luxury, a symbol of wealth and refinement, but also a silent destroyer. Picture a confectioner's shop in London. Its shelves lined with jars of glistening sweet marzipan molded into flowers, toffees wrapped in wax paper, sugared plums dusted with crystals. The wealthy, like Victoria, indulged freely, their tables laden with desserts that marked their status. But dentistry was crude, a world of pliers and pain, not prevention. Toothbrushes were rare. Made of bone and horsehair, their bristles too soft, too clean deeply. Tooth powders, often just chalk or charcoal, were abrasive, wearing down enamel rather than protecting it. Smell the chalky dust of the powder, its faint bitterness as it's brushed across Victoria's teeth, doing little to stop the decay. Feel the ache as a cavity deepens, the sharp sting when a sweet touches a nerve. This was the price of indulgence, a price even a queen could not escape. Her teeth blackening one by one as the years passed. Step closer now, and imagine a private moment. In the queen's bedchamber, late at night, the fire has died to embers, the room lit only by a single candle, its wax dripping onto a silver holder. Victoria sits at her dressing table, a mirror reflecting her tired face, her lips closed to hide the damage. A maid, her hands steady but gentle, holds a small glass bottle of clove oil, its stopper worn from frequent use. Smell the oil's sharp, spicy warmth as she dabs it onto a cloth, pressing it gently against the queen's aching molar. Feel the coolness of the cloth, the brief relief as the clove numbs the pain, though it cannot stop the decay. Hear the soft rustle of the maid's apron, the faint creak of the floorboards as she moves. Her silence a testament to the discretion this task demands. The queen winces slightly, a rare crack in her composure, but says nothing. Her pain, like her teeth, is a secret kept within these walls. Let's linger on the maids, these quiet guardians of the queen's image. Picture a young woman, her hands chapped from lye, her apron stained from kitchen work. She's been trained to anticipate Victoria's needs, to notice the subtle signs of discomforter, hand pressed to the jaw, a sip of tea held too long. She carries the tray of remedies, her fingers careful not to spill the clove oil, her movements swift to avoid drawing attention. Smell the mint water, faint and herbal, as she prepares a rinse for the queen's mouth, hoping to freshen her breath for the day's audiences. Hear the soft clink of the glass bottle, the drip of water as she weights the cloth. Her role is to make the queen seem flawless, to hide the blackened teeth, the sour breath, the ache that lingers. She knows the truth, sees it in the mirror's reflection, but her silence is her duty, her labor a shield for the queen's dignity. Now, let's step back and see the broader world of Victorian dental care. Imagine a working-class family in a London tenement, their teeth as decayed as the queen's, but with no clove oil to ease the pain. Picture a mother chewing on a twig to clean her teeth, her children sharing a single horsehair brush, its bristles frayed and useless. Smell the charcoal they use as tooth powder, its gritty residue lingering on their tongues. The poor, with no access to dentists, pulled their own teeth with pliers, the pain a fact of life. Even the middle class, with their modest incomes, fare little better. Their dentists are barbers, their tools crude, their remedies limited to herbs and hope. Smell the laudanum, bitter and medicinal, used to dull the pain of an extraction. Hear the sharp cry as a tooth is pulled, the soft sob that follows. This is the world Victoria's court reflects, a world where dental decay is universal, where a smile is a luxury few can afford. Return now to the palace, to a moment of public display. Picture Victoria at a grand banquet, her black gown shimmering. In the chandelier's light, her head held high. The table is laden with sweet marzipan fruits, sugared violets, toffee brittle each one, a temptation she cannot resist. But her smile is restrained, her lips barely parting, her hand lifting a lavender-scented handkerchief to her mouth. Smell the lavender, sharp and floral, as it battles the faint sourness of her breath. Feel the ache in her jaw, the throb of a tooth that will soon need pulling. Hear the clink of her spoon as she stirs her tea, the soft murmur of courtiers who pretend not to notice her discomfort. The court is a stage, its players all complicit in the illusion, their own teeth as decayed, their own breath masked by mint or cloves. No one speaks of the queen's pain, just as no one speaks of their own. To do so would be to admit that even royalty is human, that even a crown cannot protect against decay. Let's pause and reflect on the tools of this ritual, the objects that manage Victoria's dental struggles. The clove oil, kept in a small glass bottle, is a lifeline, its sharp scent a constant in her day. Feel its warmth as it's dabbed onto a cloth, its brief sting as it touches a cavity. The mint water, poured into a silver cup, is used to rinse, its coolness flitting against the warmth of her mouth. Smell its faint herbal note, not strong enough to mask the decay, but enough to offer a moment's freshness. The tooth powder, a mix of chalk and sage, is applied with a horsehair brush, its bristles too soft to clean deeply, its grit wearing down what enamel remains. Hear the faint scrape of the brush, the soft splash as she rinses, the quiet sigh as she sets the cup aside. These are the instruments of a losing battle, tools that soothe but cannot save, that maintain the illusion of a queen untouched by time. Now, imagine a rare visit from the palace dentist, a man in a stiff coat, his bag heavy with pliers and probes. The room is prepared, the curtains drawn, the maids stationed outside to ensure privacy. Smell the carbolic acid he uses to clean his tools, its sharp chemical bite cutting through the air. Feel the cold metal of the pliers as he examines Victoria's mouth, her lips trembling slightly, her eyes fixed on the ceiling. Hear the soft creak of the chair as she grips its arms, the faint grunt as a tooth is pulled, the quick drip of blood onto a cloth. The pain is sharp but brief, dulled by laudanum, its bitter taste lingering on her tongue. The dentist works quickly, his hands steady, his voice low as he assures her it's done. But the gap in her mouth, the ache that follows, is a secret the maids must hide, their brushes and oils working harder to mask the truth of her smile. Let's step outside the palace for a moment, to the wider world of Victorian London. Picture a street vendor selling sugared nuts, his cart surrounded by children whose teeth are already darkening. Smell the sticky sweetness in the air, the faint rot of their breath as they chew. The poor, with no access to clove oil or dentists, endure their pain in silence, their teeth falling out one by one. The wealthy, like Victoria, fare only slightly better. Their remedies expensive but ineffective, their smiles as guarded as the queens hear the clatter of a barber dentist's shop, the sharp cry of a patient as a tooth is pulled without anesthesia. Smell the blood, the herbs, the fear that lingers in the air. This is the world that shaped Victoria's dental habits. A world where sugar was a status symbol, but also a slow poison, where teeth were a casualty of progress. Now, picture Victoria in her later years, her face lined with age, her smile even more restrained. The sweets are still there, a comfort in her widowhood, but each one comes at a cost. Her teeth, once merely stained, are now few, the gaps hidden by careful speech, by handkerchiefs pressed to her lips. Smell the clove oil, now a daily necessity, its scent clinging to her breath like a second skin. Feel the ache in her gums, the tenderness where teeth once stood. Hear the soft rustle of her gown as she moves, the faint clink of her teacup as she sips to soothe the pain. The maids, Ever vigilant, adjust her diet, offering softer foods, more tea, more mint water. But the decay is relentless, a quiet reminder of her mortality, yet she remains the queen, her image polished by their hands, her smile a secret they guard with every dab of oil, every rinse of herbs as you drift closer to sleep. Dear friends, let the scents of the palace globes mint. Coal fade into a soft haze, like the hum of a fan in your own room. Victoria's rotten smile, hidden behind her handkerchief, was no failing, but a fact of her time, a reflection of a world where sugar was a luxury and dentistry a terror. Her maids, with their steady hands and silent tongues, were the keepers of this secret, their remedies a testament to the Queen's humanity and her power. Let the rhythm of their work, the clink of silver, the rustle of cloth, lull you now, carrying you deeper into the quiet of history. The Queen's dental decay, like her reign, was a triumph of will over reality, a delicate balance of pain and pretense. For now, let the palace's warmth envelop you, let its secrets fade into the shadows, and let your dreams begin where Victoria's ritual ends. Dear friends, let your mind drift, your breath soften, and settle into the quiet rhythm of this moment as we wander through the grand, yet gritty, halls of Buckingham Palace. The evening is still, the gaslights casting a warm glow across marble floors, their flicker dancing on gilded walls. But beneath the splendor, the air tells a different story, one of coal smoke, damp stone, and the faint, persistent sourness of waste that no amount of lavender can mask. It's the mid-19th century, and Queen Victoria's palace, the heart of her empire, is a place of beauty and filth, where chamber pots lurk behind velvet curtains and cesspits bubble just beyond the garden walls. Picture the Queen gliding through her throne room, her black gown rustling, unaware, or perhaps all too aware of the odors that cling to the air. Smell the rosemary strewn on the floors. Hear the distant slosh of a servant's bucket. Feel the clammy chill of unwashed walls. This is a tale of a palace that dazzles the eye, but assaults the nose. A royal home where sanitation lags far behind its majesty. So, breathe deeply, dear listener. Let the hum of these words wrap around you, and step with me into the unwashed reality of Victoria's world as we begin. Imagine standing in the grand entrance hall of Buckingham Palace. It's high, ceilings adorned with chandeliers, their crystals catching the light like frozen stars. The floor gleams, polished by countless hands, but the air is heavy, warm, carrying the faint musk of bodies pressed too close, of fabrics worn too long. Step closer, and you'll notice the scent shifts a whiff of coal smoke from the fireplaces, a sharp tang of vinegar from a servant's cleaning rag, and something deeper, more persistent, like the sour edge of a chamber pot tucked discreetly behind a curtain. Hear the soft echo of footsteps, the rustle of a lady's crinoline as she passes, the distant clatter of a bucket being carried down a back stair. This is no modern palace with flushing toilets or tiled drains. This is a world where waste is managed by hand, where servants toil in the shadows to keep the illusion of cleanliness alive. The palace, for all its grandeur, is a place of practical limits. Its beauty a fragile mask over the filth that seeps through every crack. Let's pause and breathe in the scene. Dear listener, picture a corridor off the main hall, its walls lined with portraits of Victoria's ancestors, their painted eyes watching as a maid hurries past, a covered chamber pot in her hands. Smell the faint ammonia as she moves, the rosemary sprinkled on the floor doing little to mask it. Feel the dampness in the air, the stone walls cool and slightly slick from years of trapped moisture. The palace is vast, its rooms numbering in the hundreds, but its sanitation is rudimentary chamber, pots in every bedroom, cesspits beneath the gardens, and open drains that carry waste to the nearby Thames, itself a sluggish river of sewage. Hear the soft slosh of liquid as the maid empties the pot into a bucket, her movements quick to avoid spilling, her face set in a mask of focus. This is the unseen labor that keeps the palace running, the work that allows Victoria to sit on her throne without acknowledging the filth just out of sight. Now, let's consider the state of sanitation in Victoria's time. In the 1840s and 1850s, when her reign was in its prime, plumbing was a dream, not a reality. Picture a London physician, his coat dusted with snuff, warning against the dangers of water, his voice grave as he speaks of chills and fevers. Keep the windows closed, he advises, lest the miasma of the river enter. Smell the faint bitterness of his herbal tonics, offered as a shield against disease. Germ theory is still decades away, and the palace, like the city, operates on the belief that bad air, not dirt, spreads illness. So the floors are strewn with herbs, rosemary, thyme, lavender to combat the miasma. Their sharp scents released underfoot but fading quickly against the deeper odors of waste. Feel the crunch of dried leaves beneath your shoes, the faint stickiness of the floor where spills have soaked in. This is a world where cleanliness is a scent, not a state, where the palace's grandeur battles its own decay. Step into the Queen's private apartments now, where the air is warmer, the curtains heavier, the scents more layered. Victoria sits at her writing desk, a shawl around her shoulders, her pen scratching across paper. A chamber pot, discreetly tucked beneath a cushioned stool, waits for a maid's quiet hands. Smell the faint sourness, the vinegar used to clean the pot, the herbs sprinkled inside to dull the odor. Hear the soft creak of the stool as a servant lifts it, the slosh of liquid as she carries the pot away, her steps careful to avoid drawing. Attention, the Queen, engrossed in her letters, seems oblivious, but she knows the rhythm of this task, the silent pact that keeps her dignity intact. The palace's sanitation depends on these servants, their buckets and rags, a lifeline in a world without drains or sewers. Feel the weight of their labor, the ache in their arms as they carry waste through back corridors, down narrow stairs to the cesspit outside, where it joins the refuse of the entire court. Let's linger on the cesspit itself, a hidden truth beneath the palace's manicured gardens. Picture a stone-lined pit, half covered by a wooden hatch, its contents bubbling in the summer heat, its stench rising despite the herbs scattered around it. Smell the decay, sharp and overwhelming, mingling with the faint sweetness of roses. From the nearby flower beds, hear the soft thud as a bucket's contents are tipped in, the faint hum of flies drawn to the waste. The servants who manage this task are the unsung heroes of the palace, their hands stained, their noses accustomed to the reek. They work at dawn or dusk, when the court is quiet, their movements swift to avoid notice. Feel the cold stone under their feet, the dampness seeping through their shoes as they stand near the pit. This is the reality of Victoria's palace, a place where beauty and filth coexist, where the Queen's elegance is built on the labor of those who manage the mess. Now, let's step back and see the palace as a whole, a microcosm of Victorian London. Picture the city outside, its streets slick with mud and manure, its air thick with coal smoke and the stench of the Thames. The palace, for all its walls, is not immune to this world. Its windows, sealed against the chill, trap the odors. Inside, sweat, waste, the greasy smoke of tallow candles. Smell the lavender sachets hung in every room, their floral notes fighting a losing battle against the deeper musk of unwashed bodies and unemptied pots. Hear the distant clatter of a cart in the mews, the low moan of wind through poorly sealed windows, carrying the city's reek inside. The palace is a fortress of status, but also a prison of its time. Its sanitation limited by the era's ignorance. Its grandeur a thin veil over the truth of its filth. Imagine a banquet hall now, the table gleaming with silver, the chandeliers, casting light on Victoria's black gown. The air is alive with sound, the clink of glasses, the murmur of courtiers, the rustle of silk. But beneath the elegance, the odors persist. A chamber pot, hidden behind a screen, waits for a servant. Hand, smell the faint ammonia, the rosemary strewn on the floor doing little to mask it. Feel the warmth of the room, the heat of too many bodies in heavy fabrics, their sweat mingling with the scent of wine and roasted meat. Victoria sits at the head, her face composed, her handkerchief pressed lightly to her lips, its lavender, sent a shield against the room's odors. Her courtiers, their own hygiene no better, mimic her, their pomanders swinging from their waists, their gloves perfumed to hide the truth of their bodies. This is the court, a stage where everyone plays their part, pretending the air is clean, the palace pristine, the queen untouched by the filth that surrounds her. Let's pause and reflect on the servants, the backbone of this illusion. Picture a young maid, her hands red from lye, her apron damp from scrubbing. She moves through the palace's back corridors, a bucket in one hand, a rag in the other, her steps quick to avoid the notice of the nobles above. Smell the vinegar she uses to clean the chamber pots, its sharp bite cutting through the air but never fully erasing the odor. Hear the slosh of water as she rinses a pot, the soft grunt as she lifts a heavy bucket. Her work is endless emptying pots, scrubbing floors, scattering herbs, all to keep the palace's secrets hidden. She knows the truth, sees it in the stained porcelain, smells it in the cesspit's reek. But her silence is her duty, her labor a gift to the queen's image. Feel the ache in her shoulders, the chill of damp stone under her feet, the weight of a task that never ends. Now, let's consider the tools of this sanitation, the objects that manage the palace's waste. The chamber pot, porcelain and painted, with flowers, is a symbol of wealth, but its contents tell a humbler story. Smell the ammonia, the faint herbs sprinkled inside, the vinegar used to rinse it. Feel its weight as a maid carries it, its surface cool but slick from use. The buckets, wooden and worn, are carried through back stairs, their handles rough against calloused hands. Hear the creak of the wood, the drip of liquid as they're tipped into the cesspit. The rags, coarse and frayed, are used to scrub the pots, the floors, the walls, their fibers stained with the palace's truths. Smell the lye, harsh and chemical, as it's poured into a basin, the maid's hands stinging as they work. These are the instruments of a losing battle, tools that manage but never conquer the filth that defines the palace. Step outside now, to the gardens where the cesspit lies. Picture the roses, their petals bright against the green, their sweetness a fragile defense against the pit's stench. Smell the decay, sharp and heavy, rising in the morning mist. Hear the soft thud of a hatch being lifted, the splash as waste is poured in, the faint hum of insects drawn to the warmth. The servants work quickly, their faces covered with cloths to dull the smell, their hands steady despite the task. This is the palace's underbelly, a place where beauty meets brutality, where the Queen's elegance depends on the labor of those who manage the mess. Feel the damp grass under their feet, the weight of the bucket as it's emptied, the relief as they step back into the garden's sweeter air. Now, imagine Victoria in her later years, her body heavier, her movements slower, the palace's filth, a constant presence she's learned to ignore. The air is thicker now, the coal smoke denser, the odors more persistent as the cesspits overflow in the summer heat. Smell the lavender she carries, its scent fading against the palace's reality. Hear the soft creak of her chair as she sits, the rustle of her gown as she adjusts her shawl. The maids, ever vigilant, scatter more herbs, empty more pots, but the task is endless, the filth a fact of life. Yet Victoria remains the queen, her image polished by their hands, her palace a symbol of power despite its secrets. The court, the servants, the city, they all play their part, pretending the air is clean, the walls untainted, the queen untouched by the grime that surrounds her. As you drift closer to sleep, dear friends, let the scents of the palace rose vinegar coal fade into a soft haze, like the hum of a fan in your own room. The filthy palace, with its chamber pots and cesspits, was no failing, but a fact of Victoria's time. A reflection of a world where sanitation was a dream, not a reality. The servants, with their steady hands and silent tongues, were the keepers of this truth, their labor a testament to the Queen's humanity and her power. Let the rhythm of their work, the slosh of buckets, the rustle of rags, lull you now, carrying you deeper into the quiet of history. The palace's filth, like Victoria's reign, was a triumph of will over reality, a delicate balance of beauty and decay. For now, let the palace's warmth envelop you, let its secrets fade into the shadows, and let your dreams begin where Victoria's world ends.